It's not a good sign.
No?
I need a volunteer.
Anyone?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Howdy.
Thank you. All right. First of all, thanks for attending. And I want to get started by, thanking, Chris Clark, who it went back to his home in the upstate, and I want to thank him for his service and his leadership for the last year and 8 months. And hopefully you felt the impact of Chris's energy and passion and zeal for excellence, and I'm acting CFO for a period of time, and I will do the best I can, and I will devote probably majority of my time. And I think we have a great team here to keep on rolling. So I ask for your patience, and if you have any questions, and most of you know, just give me a call 24/7, and if I don't know, I'll find out. So again, thank you. What I want to do, if everybody has the agenda, and I assume the agenda's online, they have it. We normally do the upcoming dates, and I'm not going to read them all to you. I'll just skim them over because we have basic finance training, May 18th at 9 o'clock, Finance and Audit Committee, April 5th, Policy Committee coming up, Commission meeting. The next Finance Work Group is April 6th at 1 o'clock. And then we have 2 more Galasso training sessions, March 22nd, April 7th. And lastly, we have, last but not least, we have the Human Service Providers Finance Conference on April 22nd at 8:30 to 3 at Brooklyn Banquet and Conference Center. And I assume it's going to come with lunch, which is worth the trip to Columbia. Old business. I have, most of these will belong to Debbie.
Sound.
What do you say?
It's not on the computer, on my phone.
He doesn't have any
My
sound.
sound thing's not working well. I gotta log back into my computer. Take.
Ralph, I think we have a live mic out there. All right, I think we're good to go. Band B&I flip project update. I'll take a few minutes for that. It's obviously important to all of us. I met with the human service providers today, and I think many of you are on, but also there's many finance directors out there, so I will do it from the top. And I'll say it in my terms and try to frame it up how I think we can communicate in the most simplest terms. When we flipped the band B&Is on January 1st, our general model was to use the fiscal year 19 pre-COVID numbers. And in fiscal year 19, the providers had approximately $11 million in excess cash above their expenditures. And again, that's a rough number. And so we went on the theory that when we took them back, there was $11 million in cash that we were taking out of the system, and we were very, very cognizant of that. To address that, the first thing we did was we passed through all the HHS rates to the providers, which was about $7 million. And that's a net statewide loss of $4 million. The issue with that is that $4 million hits the boards unequally. Some boards were already running a deficit, so they had a significant benefit by not having to pay $400,000 that they were paying before. And there were other boards that, based on history and happenstance, had a large excess cash, and they were used to spending that. They lost it. And so we're doing 2 things going forward. The main one that we associate with Band B&I is looking at all your residential waiver slots from an acuity perspective to see those that have that should be expanded or increased. You have increased need and expenses, and therefore we're going to adjust it. The process for doing that is 3 phases. We're in the middle of the first phase, and the challenge is how do we do it fairly and effectively because in the past, DDSN has been criticized for being favorites, and you know, if we're not very careful on how we do it, it undermines what we do. And so I thought that was a very good idea. We use the HRST tool to assess behaviors and obviously health issues. And there's some questions about, does it do enough behaviors? I'm satisfied it does, and I'm no expert. But it's a tool that we comb everybody's facts through. We pull out the facts that maybe even the providers have not thought about, and we do it in a consistent way. And what we've learned in phase one is of about the 100 that we're looking at, and I think we've done about, I'm guessing, mid-60s after last week. The findings are coming, they're coming to the same conclusion the boards did. What the difference is, when the boards sent in their evidence packages, they varied widely. And by us calling and doing these hour interviews, we got some good rigorous data, comparative data, to really validate that, yes, some of these G's need to go H's, some of the H's need to go to G's. So we feel good about that tool. And when we enter the next phase after the commission approves it, now we're entering to where it's going to affect resources. And now, and the way we're going to go about doing that is we're going to take the providers who were hurt the most in the band B and I flip, and there's about 5 to 7 of them that lost revenue. We're going to do them first for the obvious reasons. We want to address their issues first. And we'll be coming out with something here in the not too distant future about that methodology, so that when we get the green light, hopefully from the commission to move forward, we can quickly get into that, and we're going to increase our manpower and resources to do the analysis. And certainly this phase of the analysis is going to rely a little bit more on financial analysis and not just qualitative data about the person's health and behaviors. The second thing we're doing to address that, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit to, I think there's a spot on here about rates. Is there one on there, Debbie? Are we talking about rates? Yeah, rate development. I'm going to skip ahead to that because that's equally as important as relooking at the waiver residential beds and trying to adjust the acuity. We're pursuing two situations. HHS has put us through the hoop for many years to get our financial house in order and to get our numbers where they're credible, and I believe they are. And the new director over there has been very user-friendly. He says, you prove to me you have these fact cases, then he will act much quicker, and I believe he will. And the two cases that we're pursuing is, one, we believe that there's at least $10 million of excess costs on our system that would justify a residential rate increase of $10 million without getting any new appropriations for state funds. If that is the case, the average rate would go up about $8 or $9 a day. And we've presented a business case to them as to why we think that is possible. And we presented to them on Monday, and we'll keep on pushing that issue. The second area is the Mercer report that came out in, I guess, the fall of 19. And it came out with residential rates that were looking for a 15 to 20% increase, which I don't think anybody objected to, and there was a lot of logical rationale to support that. But when they came to the day program and at-home rates, they really seemed to, in most people's opinion, miss the ball. You know, the day program rates they came out with ranged literally from $7 to $14 a half day, and came out with some at-home rates of respite was going to be, $25 to $29 an hour. So, and I think a lot had to do with them using inappropriate assumptions or national assumptions and not tailoring it to what South Carolina does. HHS has been fabulous here, and they basically said, take those Mercer rates. Each rate has like 10 assumptions, and you fill in those assumptions, and we'll rerun the numbers. But you got to prove to us that your assumptions have the validity. But for the last 2 weeks, we've been cranking internally, and I made a number of ad hoc calls out to a lot of the EDs that know a lot about it, and I got bits and pieces of information. So between what we did and bits and pieces, I came up with, as I'm basically the aggregator of the facts to get these assumptions correct, or at least first draft. And on Thursday, I'm meeting with two small groups of EDs who are very experienced, and very experienced, and they're from both associations, and we're going to sit down and go over all those assumptions and really challenge each other as to how do we prove that, are they reasonable, because we need to have the business case on top of just saying, hey, these assumptions are different. And the assumptions are in the areas of Mercer had a 1-to-7 ratio in every day service, and obviously we think that number is less. They had productivity rates of 97%, meaning only 3% non-billable time, and we think that is way off. They had vacancy rates of 5% when we think it should be at least 15. And their ability to factor in transportation of our individuals to and from their homes appeared not even to be in the equation. So we have a lot of significant data that I think we can add to the assumptions, and then once I think I arrive at a consensus and feel like, hey, we have a good business case, and hopefully that'll be by the end of the week after we have these groups on Thursday, I'll package it up and I'll bring it over there and we'll make our case. And our goal is to get them to just commit to rates so we can bring some certainty to our system. And once they commit to rates, the next phase would be, okay, DDSN, show us you have the state match for these rates. And I feel strongly that once we get through these 6 months and all the complex transactions of COVID-19 settle, all the recruitments, the taking back the B's and I's, PPP money, I mean, there's just a lot of convoluting factors. Once that settles, I feel like we will have $10 million of banned B&I money that I consider state funds that we can reinvest into rates and get them and turn $1 into $3.33. So that is a strategy. And if you asked me 3 months ago how receptive HHS would be to really commit to rates and really get as serious as they are, I was not as anywhere near as optimistic as I am today. So have patience with that. I will keep you in a loop as we go. And I thank those EDs for volunteering their time on Thursday, and we'll move that ball down the field. Any questions on B's and I's or rates? All right.
Yes, I did put a question up under conversation.
I tell you, Ralph, let me turn on my computer, and I'm going to let Deborah Leppert go, and then when she finishes her presentation, I'll look at the question queue and I'll hit those. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Deborah, you're on.
All right. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to give you a quick update on what's going on with contracts. I am in the process and towards the end of a big round of residential amendments, getting everything caught up through the early part of February. Those will go out by the end of this week, and they will be on your next payment schedule. This is for residential vacancies, beds coming and going, and band changes and different things like that. After that, I will issue the language updates for your capitated and your non-capitated contracts and your new at-home waiver contract. Those will all come together. That'll be something I'll be working on next week. Then I will be issuing new contracts for day and supported employment providers related to the fee-for-service switch for some small agencies that we haven't had contracts with before. It used to be third party, now they're dealing directly with us, so we have to get those contracts out. And then after that, I'll go back and do another round of residential amendments. So if there's anything that after you get this amendment that you've been looking for and you haven't seen yet, or you just have any kind of questions about bed vacancies or when I'm going to get this amendment or that amendment, just email me or give me a call, and I'll be happy to take a look at it for you. I will be coming back into the office finally next week. So That's good news for me anyway. Hopefully it is for everybody else too.
For me too.
Yay.
Hey, I can
Okay, I'm looking at the conversations, and I don't see your conversation, Ralph, so you can say it verbally, or you can type it.
Okay, what I put was, I saw where you put test. And
Yeah, I was just,
not a test, just a question. But anyway, do you have a timetable for when you would expect DHHS to be able to get new rates in effect? And that applies first to residential. And then it sounds like day services is going to take a longer period of time because it's more work. I mean, one doesn't have to wait for the other, I hope.
the single residential rate increase that we get, we're asking for consideration. We're giving the information, and from there they can make a decision. And when that decision timetable, we've been asking for a long time. I think we have a better business case, and I think there's more receptiveness, and I think the risk is low given a number of factors. But it's real, the ball's in their court, so I don't want to put any undue pressure on them. But the ball's in their court, and I really can't tell you. All I can say is we will continue our engagement, and but that is not that's a yes or no decision. They could say yes, we can do it, or no, we can't do it, and we'll go on. As far as the day program, individual employment, respite, and we're doing one other rate.
home support.
In-home supports, there you go. That's an iterative process. I think by the end of the week, I will have captured our system's best evidence, and I will carry it over to them. I imagine the first thing they'll do is send it off to Mercer, and then, to me, then it's a matter of them engaging us, going back and forth, and doing whatever it takes to satisfy them. And even when Mercer agrees to, hey, this is what we think, they call it a constructed market rate. And I think the constructed market rate is, in my terms, it's kind of like when you build a model that's kind of at the 50 foot macro view perspective. It is not a go out to 10 providers, sample, and do a real detailed cost analysis. This is just their best estimate of, based on these assumptions, that's the rate. And once they give that rate, it's not binding DHS to do anything. It just gives them confidence that if they decide to increase the rate, that there is a market basis for it as opposed to a cost basis for it. And in the terms of my head, we're at $31.29 for day programs that we pass through. A lot of times, whatever the rate is, we may not be able to afford that rate on the first go round. We may have to wait until we get some legislative appropriations. And so I don't want to put any pressure on them like, we're gonna pass that rate through, and all of a sudden we don't have enough match to cover it. But I think it's very reasonable to ask them to commit so that everybody can see that's the target. It's already agreed upon. Now the question is we have to get our state match lined up to move forward. And as I said earlier, I do believe we have that state match. So I can't tell you the timetable on that because, what Mercer's timetable is not our timetable. And then once they decide it, there's a decision making. So Ralph, as you know, this has been many years in the making. I just feel like I think people realize, it's time. And all we can do is keep pushing, and I'll keep you updated. All right. I have one more question here. You want a second? Okay, give me one more second. Okay, the question, and I want to paraphrase it, is the contract language. And when Chris left, he gave me the handoff, and I think we have draft language. And his recommendation was to have a meeting in April. And whenever the meeting is, I'm open to any of that, but get that draft out to you and have a meeting, and then hammer it out between the two of us so that everybody's comfortable with, and it was only 2 pages. It wasn't like and when I think of contract, I think of, closing on my house where I have 80 documents. It just was 2 pages. We will be reasonable, we'll meet, and we'll hammer it out to everybody's mutual satisfaction. The acuity assessment, is it taking longer than anticipated? I think implementing the HRST with, I call it the quality controls, because we don't want to rush out of the block and get inconsistent results and paint the whole system. I believe the people that are leading that have gone slow. They've sent their results back to HRS, who's quality controlled them, and HRS has advised us they're some of the best documentation they've seen, and we feel like the results are consistent with what providers are doing. So I believe we've kept that group to a small group of 3 very experienced residential people. And now that we gain confidence with it, I think we're going to expand the number of people who will do it. And of course, we can't let people run on their own. They'll probably match up with one of the experienced people, and they'll go out, and my goal is to get to 8 people. If we want to get through this in a reasonable time, we got to get to 8 people and power through this in a couple of months. But we're just not going to turn 8 people loose with no experience. So I think it will pick up steam. I think we're a lot better with the tool, and we can add people without the risk of lowering the quality. So it will pick up steam. I think it's gone a little slow. All right. Let's go to the next section. I'll pick up questions, and I'll understand them and hit them next time.
Next section, item 10, day services, 60% recoupment for October to December, fee for service for day services for October to December. I received the files that Chris has come up with, been looking them over, and I believe that, well, I know I can't make the March 16th, 17th payment schedule because it's already worked on. So we're looking at April 1st payment schedule, that the adjustments will be there. Make sure that you will also receive the documentation that I've received with regards to how that was determined. And if you have any questions, ask me, and I'll do the best I can to answer them as they roll.
Okay. Ralph has a question about, I guess, the Mercer assumptions about transportation and equipment. Ralph, Mercer had a category called indirect costs. It included training, 4 or 5 miscellaneous things, and they threw in transportation. And the people I showed it to felt like, that 5% number doesn't include any to and from transportation. That must be just transportation, like day trips from the facility. And in the narrative of the report, they talk about discussing it with HHS. So it's pretty clear to me it's not in the Mercer rate. And the question is, now we have to quantify how to get it in the Mercer rate. And the way the Mercer rates work is it is a rough estimate of percent of it's almost like of your overall rate. Do we add 10% or 5% for indirect costs? Right now it's at 5%. If we think the cost for transportation is X dollars and we convert it to 5%, we'll suggest 10%. But I think the trade-offs when you're looking at that rate, how they do rates is, you take your direct care staff, I think the position I've figured out from talking to people is you are billing them for 6 hours a day, 2-3 hour half days. You're paying them for 7.5. There's 20% unbillable time. It sounds like a lot of the direct care workers are obviously participating as drivers and the whole transportation thing. So we either have to get it in non-productive time or we got to get it in transportation. And that's where I need your help to kind of build out both scenarios so that we capture the costs to cover transportation one way or another. Okay. Let's go on to the next section and I'll hit questions in between.
Next section is Directive 200-01-DD, cash on hand maintained at the residential level. I believe this is in reference to the process of revising directives right now, and that's one on the list along with room and board and a bunch of others. I think that's just an informational thing more than anything with regards to that we're currently working on the directive for 200-01.
Okay.
The next one on room and board update. We have 10 boards left that are not approved. 3 of those boards we have not received any information, not audited financials or anything in which to be able to approve a room and board. Those other 7 are currently being worked on by 3 different people I have working on them, and I'm hoping over the next week we can put this to bed. There's been a lot of going back and forths with questions this year, you know, things that we've recognized that were not correct last year, and made every attempt to build a better policy and a better practice. We are in the process also of revising the room and board directive, which should be out shortly also. Next item, cost allocation plans. I've received a cost allocation plan from every board. Sorry, but they're sitting on a file on my desk. It's on my list to get to. Once we get through room and board, I have every idea plan of working on those and getting those back out. I don't anticipate the cost allocation plans taking anywhere near as long as the room and board has. So look for it shortly, within the next month, I would say.
Let me jump in with some questions here. Moving.
All right.
I have a question about the April 1st recruitment and reimbursement pertaining to October, November, December day program. Are we going to see, you know, are we going to look at the payment or proposed payment before it happens? And I'll answer that. I've seen the work paper, and I don't see any reason why we can't like code it and send it out. But I think the good news on that is, and I looked at it, and it kind of, I was trying to make the math work, and my conclusion is that your residential day programs are billing extraordinarily. And so, you know, pre-COVID, attendance might have been 92%. Post-COVID, it's probably 100%. And so your billings for your residential is really, really above pre-COVID levels. And the average, our at-home utilization for day program is about 40% of pre-COVID levels. But when you put those two together and provide that 40% base, like Chris did the analysis, you know, when we take all the money that's out there now for the day program, and it's a big number. Chris had it down to literally, we're only going to recoup from statewide a very small number. What was that number? Like $60,000?
It's not, yeah.
And so I thought that was a phenomenal thing, because you guys are, the residential is just carrying us, and you're doing 40%, which is good for you know, November and December. But so we'll give you the numbers, but they were higher than I thought. And I think basically if you use 40% as a benchmark, and you think you're above 40% pre-COVID levels, then you're probably going to get money. And if you're under that and really haven't got going, then you're going to lose some money. But that number is higher than I thought it would be until I double checked the numbers. So we will give you those numbers, but it is I think it was surprisingly good numbers, and we'll get that after you. We got a question about adult health care receives a separate rate for transportation in this state. That is a true statement. How that may be a future waiver issue, but in the short term, the service description we have, it's all together. And so that's the hand we've been dealt, and it just makes our math a little bit harder. But we can't change that at the current time. there was some information on 200-01DD. Yeah, it appeared it was just released and it's on the website. So
Okay.
there's Chris. Oh, there's Chris. Always he's one step ahead of us all the time. So I'll give it back to you, Dave.
Okay. CFO's SPM split. This is just old business to reiterate that this is working with IT as far as being able to split or be able to segregate out private providers from the boards so that when we are sending out emails and trying to contact, it's easier to ensure that we're capturing all of the private providers versus all of the boards. So it would behoove you to go out there and look at the data that you have out there to ensure that the data is correct. I know in pulling just like financial, as far as that goes, some say director and some say CFO. So we're trying to get that to be a little bit more uniform, so it would be more usable for all here. And number 15 on new business, retro rate increases to private providers. LaKen, if you're on, do you want to speak to that?
Hi, yes, Debbie, can you hear me?
Yep. Here you go.
Hey, okay, so the rate increase payments, those were submitted to AP on last Friday. So AP should be working on those this week to get those keyed and get those payments to the CG's office so they can be approved. So hopefully the private providers, they should be receiving their deposits soon, and they should also be receiving the supporting documentation for the calculations. They should be receiving those in the mail like they previously have done with all other invoices that have been paid.
And just as a side note, if by some chance you get the funds in your bank account through an IDT or any other means and you don't get the backup, feel free to contact either myself or LaKenya, and we will make sure that you get the copy. We can encrypt it and send you out an email.
Yeah.
Okay. Short-term cash loan program.
You're on a roll. Hit it.
I'm on a roll, huh? About 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was asked to go through and look at the cash balances that we received on the quarterly financial information that you upload into Smartsheet. And then I was also given the average anticipated amount that Chris had come up with as the cash amount each agency would need over a month's period of time. I reviewed that information, and the goal was to look at any board that did not have, that had less than 2 months of available cash at December 31st now, and then to look at year-to-date through December, anyone that had a loss of funds. I did that. I sent emails out. I believe emails went out to 11 boards just to touch base to see if you needed any funds or not. So all that said, there's 7 or 8 boards that I have not received an answer on. One board I've received an answer on that yes, they will need funds, and they are working on a cash projection through June, which is what we're asking you for. So what I ask is that if any of you anticipate that you're going to need funds, even if you have not completed the cash projection, just shoot me an email and let me know. We're just trying to get a handle on it. And on the other side of the coin, in my email, I also noted that anyone that receives a cash loan from us has to be approved by the Finance and Audit Committee or the Commission, knowing full well that each one only meets once a month. So looking at is you're going to be a month out. So if you anticipate this happening, please don't come to me at the last minute or to Pat at the last minute and say that, we don't have any cash to meet payroll, because number one, I can't turn that around quick enough to get it to you to begin with the changes that they've made as far as distributing funds and paying bills and so forth with the state. They've put on a lot more requirements and so forth. So we need at least a week to 2 weeks just to get it through the CG's office and get it approved and electronically sent to you. So I just ask that, if you anticipate there's going to be an issue, shoot me an email. I'm not even asking for a dollar amount, just something in which you can give us some kind of an idea of what we're looking at.
I'll do the next topic, but start looking at it. When I get
Okay.
down, we'll hit those.
Okay.
Right. Waiver renewal. The IDRD waiver renewal is required to be approved by December 31st of this year, so 10 months away. The CS waiver is the following June 30th, so it's 16 months away. The IDRD renewal, after HHS looked at all the issues in front of us, they talked to CMS, and they made I think a very reasonable determination of saying, I look at it as we have three issues. One is, let's get the renewal done in time so that we're not in a jam like maybe we had in the past. So the renewal is going to be, they're working on it now, they're coming up with the draft idea. They're making some adjustments to services that are essentially cost neutral, but they're trying to make it better in the service that we have, adding a new service. But it's not seismic changes. Once we get that through the system, have public vetting and get that off to CMS, by the summer, we're then going to immediately start an amendment phase that we need for fee-for-service, and it's going to require us building individual residential rates for individual residential services, and our residential services, whatever you call them, low, medium, high, or whatever we call them, the service description is going to have to be, specific enough to distinguish what are the service differences, and the primary service difference is staffing levels. So we're going to write these service definitions to justify the rates that we need, but it's going to come with requirements that we haven't had in the past. In particular, ratios of staff to individuals we serve, and they're not going to be crazy stringent, but there's going to be ranges of expectations. So that's going to take a little time to write, and it's going to take Mercer a little time to price out. But we got to get that taken care of and get market rates to those services, and then that will be an amendment to the IDRD waiver, hopefully shortly after the beginning of the year. And once we get that amendment in there, now we can do the ultimate conversion from where we are to individual rates. And then the third issue when it comes to waiver, and I think this is more of a longer multi-year strategy, there's pretty much universal thought that, the two waivers that have a lot of overlapping issues will be considered for one waiver. There'll be considerations as to how do we do assessments, how do we give case managers more latitude by providing ranges of assessments for individuals. And they're the kind of thing other states are doing with their waivers. And many of them started 4 or 5, 6 years ago, and they got sued, so we're hopefully going to avoid being sued. But they're the kind of waiver changes that take time. They take a lot of stakeholder input because they're just a little bit more focused, and we have to be in a position to have the time to invest in those things without rushing them. So that's kind of the third leg of it. So that's going to be, I think, after we get the fee-for-service squared away, get these renewed, then that's going to be on the agenda for, kind of a structural consideration changes for the long term. Question?
Is there a form we can complete to get the funds DD going forward? Well, ultimately, what we were initially looking at was that we would get a cash projection from, and you determine how much funding you believe that you're going to need to get through. And then from there, we were going to work on a loan document. We weren't looking at doing a mortgage or anything of that nature. We were going to try to keep it simple.
It's not gonna be an IPO or something.
As simple as possible. And then there was the question in here about the interest rate. There is no interest rate. Chris made that perfectly clear months ago that we're here to help you. Really, that's what we're here for, and to do the best that we can. So it's dollar for dollar. What the terms are going to be, I think a lot will depend upon the amount of funding that you're looking at. I believe I originally heard something mentioned, maybe 3 years originally. Nothing was ground in stone at that point. I think some of it may come up to the Finance and Audit Committee as far as that goes, making a determination as to how long the payback's going to be. So I'm here in the rate. We're going to, if they're okay. Hey, LaKenya, are you still on?
I'm here, Debbie.
Okay, I'm going to read you this question, and you can explain how you came up with the figures that you did. I think it'd be easier for you to explain it. Just so I'm clear, DDSN is paying the rate increases to private providers regardless of if they were originally paid by a financial manager.
Okay, so the private providers that I paid, those are the ones that have been invoicing me from January through December. So I took what we already paid during that period of time and then went back and did the increase from it. So if they were getting paid, I guess, as a third party, that I would not be paying them. That money would still go to whoever I paid. Now, if that, say for example, maybe like community options, if they service somebody through another smaller provider, then that money would get passed on from community options to that other provider that way. But it's not like I'm paying anybody brand new that we have never paid before directly.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I think basically the answer to your question is that if they were originally paid by a financial manager, no, we are not paying them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The question that was posed previously, and if you don't have the answer yet, that's fine. But the rate increase was issued, and third-party providers that were paid on community B&I bands are asking about how they get paid for the increase in the rate.
If they were paid by the financial manager, then it's going to be the financial manager's responsibility to forward that increase over to the third-party provider.
Well, the problem with that theory is historically, whenever there was an increase, the community bands were increased in a corresponding percentage to cover that additional cost, and that has not happened.
Glenn, let's talk. Hey guys, Glenn, let's talk about this off, and we'll give an example, because I felt confident with what was determined and what we came up with, and
We absolutely can. That's fine.
okay, that would be awesome. Let's see, the fee-for-service retro payment. Okay, here's a question. The fee-for-service retro payment each quarter was based on the finance manager, so regardless of provider, the board got the fee-for-service rate increase on the repayment. They don't get paid the increase. They got a vacancy allowance already. It sounds like somebody I know. That was in the implementation plan. There is no increase to pay these providers.
I got lost early.
Okay, go ahead. Start it.
No.
Okay. Fee-for-service retro payment each quarter was based on the finance manager, so regardless of the provider, the board got the fee-for-service rate increase on the repayment. They don't get paid the increase. They got a vacancy allowance already that was in the implementation plan. There is no increase to pay these providers. Yeah, see? I knew it.
Oh, that's,
Hi, Chris.
oh.
Did you like?
You thought you knew the guy, and you're right.
Yeah, I saw the bell. Chris, you want to speak? No?
I mean, I can. I'm not a representative for DDSN anymore, but I did all the work on it, so I'll be glad to speak to it if you guys want me to.
Please do.
Perfect, perfect.
All right, so the issue is, so we went fee for service with all the DSM boards July 1 through the retro 60% computation process and the residential rate increase process. So DSM boards were paid retroactive for all at-home and residential day slots attendance to July 1 based on your actual attendance and the band rate adjustment. Now, as it relates to passing through to private providers, part of the fee-for-service increase is paying you for a vacancy allowance because you actually got paid fee-for-service. So you guys should have already been paying them 20% vacancy allowance, and there should be no rate increase at all for privates except effective January 1. Going forward, there would be an increase. And LaKenya only paid folks that billed DDSN, and so if they were billing day program or residential, those are the only providers that would have been paid back to July 1. LaKenya said January, but I don't think she meant January. I think she meant July to December. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Just for clarification, it's not just day services. We're talking respite and companion. Specifically with the third-party private providers, it's been respite and companion rather than day.
That might be something y'all need to look at,
Okay.
Pat and Debbie. If you want to talk to me about it offline, we can. I know you're in transition, so we can talk through it if you need help.
Okay.
Thanks. Glenn, let me get in touch with you. It probably will be tomorrow, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Debbie. Here to work with you.
Yep. No, thanks much. Okay.
All right.
Where are we?
Any more questions? I think we're done our
Down to,
questions,
yeah, I think we're done with that.
and we're down to the question and answer session.
Waiver renewal. Yeah, you did that.
We'll take type questions, or you can grab the open mic.
Any questions?
All right, going once, going twice. Last call. Okay. Thanks for everybody's time today. I appreciate it. And again, if any problems, call Debbie or I. We'll do the best we can to take care of you. Thank you for your patience as we work through these. Oops, I think we got a question.
Is there any documentation to support the number 10 line item for July to September? Number 10 line item. Christine, can you be a little bit more specific?
She wants to know what data we could share with the providers for the fee-for-service recoupment for July to September. She had emailed me before I left, and she's out like 30 units. It has something to do with probably the provider financial manager type issue that we were just talking about, but I didn't have time to chase that down given everything else going on.
All right.
We'll run it down.
Yeah, we'll run it down, and I'll get in touch with you, Christine. Are these meeting invites being sent out via SPM? It looks like this meeting notice email was not. No, it was not. You're right. I actually had staff that wasn't on it as well. I think ultimately that's the goal, is to be able to ensure that the information that we're getting in SBM is correct enough. But I do not believe that it was sent out by the office, and I'll have to get with, if you know of anybody that should have been on it that was not on it, can you email me? And then let me work at it with admin over here, because I also had some people that were not on it, and I believe it's coming from a listing that we have that was already set up for financial providers and EDs and so forth. So it would be at that time period, and there very well could be some people that are missed. Okay, thanks, Melissa. Any other questions? We'll try to answer them. No?
Okay. Okay, everybody, thanks for your patience, and
Okay.
we will see you soon. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Have a good day. Good week.